Stick around to the end of this video where we'll look at all the connections between Mordeo and the Native American legend it's based on, the Wendigo. This video is sponsored by Crypt TV. Welcome back to Things You Missed. In this video, I'll be breaking down everything you missed in Offering, the new episode of Mordeo on Crypt TV. For those who aren't aware, Mordeo is a serialization of the 2017 Crypt short film of the same name, in which a cannibal in the woods is transformed into a monster controlled by the Mordeo. We later find out in a Crypt announcement video that the creature who appeared in that short is merely a scout, a proxy of the Queen. So the new episode opens, as many Crypt productions do, with a little bit of gore. This character, Dan, gets his fingers chopped off by a masked man simply known as the Butcher. At first, I assumed that the woman hiding out behind the tree, Linda, was his girlfriend or something. However, Dan has a ring on his finger, and she does not. We'll see if that ends up being a significant part of the story, or if it's just an extra detail. The Butcher is carrying a book and a newspaper with him, and both contain important details. He starts by referencing the book, which we can quickly see based on the art style is the Crypt Tome. The book prominently featured in Sunny Family Cult that contains rituals men may use to turn themselves into monsters. The Butcher uses the book to find the ritual site and carry out the ritual. He's able to get the Queen Mordeo to appear and seems to be excited to transform into a monster, yelling out things like, "I'm ready," and "Please make me one of you." However, things don't go as he expected. The Queen bites off 3 of his fingers on his right hand, the same fingers that he removed from Dan at the beginning of the episode. It is as it was told by the victim in the original Mordeo short film.
There's a price to pay for eating flesh in these woods.
So the Butcher is cursed with permanent finger guns for life, which is really only another minute or so because the Queen Mordeo snaps his neck. The Butcher appears to have followed the ritual, so why wasn't he turned into a monster? Let's look back at the book. It shows imagery of human flesh along with an open mouth and the words hunger, desperation, and offering. There's also an illustration of the hooded scout from the original short film that the series is based on, so let's look there for more clues. That one also has a cannibal eating flesh, but in his case, he appears to be eating in order to survive. Listen to this dialogue.
You're hungry. There's no shame in that.
The Butcher in the new episode isn't doing it because he's hungry, he's doing it to try to become a monster. Hunger, desperation, and offering. These are the requirements that must be met in order for the transformation to take place, just as Roger had to meet certain requirements in the 3rd season of Sunny Family Cult. That wraps up the mystery of the Butcher, but we still don't know why the other 2 human characters, Dan and Linda, are out in the woods as well. When in doubt when watching Crypt TV stuff, you always gotta look for paper. Speaking of which, you should sign up for the Crypt newsletter. I mean, it doesn't actually come on paper, it's an email with updates on the Crypt Monster universe, special access merch drops, and insider info. It's free. Just look for my link in the description. Anyway, the newspaper headline tells us what we need to know going forward into this season. There are 3 missing Girl Scouts: Angela, Nancy, and the other one. Jen. I told you, always gotta look for the papers. This is just pure speculation, but Nancy looks like she could be possibly related to Linda, the girl that we saw hiding from the Butcher. My guess is that Linda and Dan are out searching for the missing girls. The name of this newspaper is the Mohawk Ledger, which ties into another Crypt series, Mohawk, which takes place in a tiny New York town in a modern setting. However, Mordeo takes place about 40 years before that. If you pause on the newspaper right before the blood hits it, you can see the date, October 29th, 1979. That also places this just 2 days before Halloween, which may or may not be significant once we get into those later episodes. In addition to the search for those missing girls, there's also another clue pointing towards a possible crossover with another Crypt TV franchise. This symbol carved on the fallen tree doesn't match up with the symbol of Mordeo, but rather the icon of the Birch, another forest-dwelling monster and a protector of good children against evil. The inclusion of the Birch symbol could just be a small promotion for the Birch, which is getting a series of its own this year, but it could also mean that the Birch is in the same territory as Mordeo, and may appear to the aid of the missing girls if Mordeo comes hunting. If that happens, expect to see a huge showdown between Mordeo and the Birch. Mordeo is based off of the mythological creature known as the Wendigo. The Wendigo is an Algonquian legend associated with famine, greed, and cannibalism. This episode reflects those themes by introducing the Butcher, a product of greed who's willing to resort to cannibalism, not to survive, but simply to gain more power. The Wendigo is a demonic creature with a humanoid form and the head of a stag. Its hunger can never be satisfied, so it's always looking for new victims. Making it a metaphorical tale, the Algonquian people would tell their young to discourage greedy behavior. It roams forests in the northern Atlantic coast in North America, which is why the territory of Mordeo resides in Mohawk, New York. Tribal members would sometimes perform a ceremony during times of famine in order to discourage taboo behaviors. The ceremony involved dancing around a drum while wearing horned masks, which may have something to do with the mask worn by the butcher in this episode. Some legends say that the Wendigo has an effect on the entire region that it inhabits, causing evil spirits to possess locals. There are many different versions of the legend. The only way to find out what creepy twists Crypt TV puts on this native folktale is to subscribe to their channel and catch new episodes of Mordeo and other Crypt Monster Universe videos every Friday. Don't forget to sign up to that newsletter to stay up to date on even more great content, and as always, I'll see you in the next one, assuming we both survive.